I wanted to remind you that we're working on our standard in which we are trying to interpret the characters by using details from the story in order to better understand what is going on in the story. And today, what I want to teach you is that a skilled reader is going to pay attention to elements of the story, to the arc of the story, specifically to the characters, okay? Before we start, I do want to draw your attention to this chart that is in your green packet. And again, remember that all of these charts are available for you to use whenever you need them, even during your reading comprehension test. Now, a lot of the elements of a story you've learned before. You've learned them in second grade, you've learned them in third grade. Some of them you may have even learned in first grade. Aiden, could you put your mask up, please? Thank you. So I just want to kind of look at this at the beginning of our lesson, just as a review of what you've already learned, because we need to take it to the next step, to the fourth grade level step, and using them to interpret. Okay, so we're pretty familiar with the setting. Setting has two parts: the physical setting, the where, and what we call the temporal setting, the time. Okay, is it set in present day, or is it set historically back, or is it set in the future? Do we have information about the season? Do we have information about the time of day? Okay, that's time. All right, then we have characters. Obviously, a character is someone that appears in a story. We always have main characters, and then we have minor characters. Main characters are in the majority of the scenes. They're a pivotal person that we need to pay attention to. Minor characters are really not that important. They're there because they need to be there, but they're not necessarily pivotal to the storyline. The antagonist is the opponent or the rival. If we think about Fox, the antagonist is obviously Fox. The protagonist is the central character in the story or the play. And I would argue in Fox that it is both Fox and Magpie that are protagonists. Okay. Plot is basically the series of related events. And if you look through these terms, you'll recognize them as the parts of the story arc that you learned about last year. Your teacher may have referred it to the story mountain. Okay? So the parts, the exposition, the beginning, that's where you're learning about the setting and the characters. You're getting all that background information. The rising action is where the conflict or the problem in the story is starting to present itself. The climax or turning point, that's where the problem is the worst. And then the falling action is how the problem becomes resolved. And then the resolution part is just it's the end of the falling action. It brings the story to a satisfactory close. Okay, something that might be new to you is this idea of foreshadowing and flashbacking. Now, we had a story in one of our reading comprehension tests, the one about the planet-saving vacation, where the main character flashed back to what she had done during the summer. It had happened before she was in school. She also flashed back to her grandfather making an important invention, which happened even before that summer. So we have to be careful to keep track of flashbacks. Now, Foreshadowing is when something happens, if you look at the definition, when something is described in the story or occurs in the story that's going to hit at what will occur later in the story. Think about front desk, okay? When Mr. Yao talks about being careful when pushing that buzzer to let somebody in past the bulletproof glass because they could be bad, that foreshadowed the event where the person came up to me and grabbed her by the shirt after she buzzed him in, okay? That's foreshadowing. It hints at something that's going to happen later. Okay. Theme, we learned how to do theme yesterday. Mood, we talked about that this morning. The mood is how you as the reader feel, reading the words and living in the book. But tone is the attitude that the writer is using. Okay? When you're writing an essay, you want to sound like you're an authority. You want your tone to be that of someone who is an expert. Natalie, I don't know what you're doing right now, but I need you to put your pencil down. Suspense, that's when you start to feel, as you're reading it, like you're just a little bit scared, a little bit worried. Suspense, you're kind of waiting, and they seem to be dragging it out for a long period of time. Then we have our narrators. Okay, now here's you often see this. You may see this on reading comprehension test. Narrators, whose point of view is it in? And it's complicated. First person point of view is the narrator is telling the story from their own point of view using I did this, I did that. Second person point of view, when the book is being written and it's saying you are walking down. Third person limited, the narrator is outside of the story and sees the events through the eyes of only one character. So how that one character interprets things. That's how front desk is this. Third person limited. We're not hearing I, right? We're just hearing Mia. Third person, all-knowing, that's when we're in everybody's head. That's when, and I'm gonna change my thinking about that. This is written in first person. So front desk, I apologize, my mistake, is written in first person point of view. Third person, all-knowing, that's when it's written as outside of the main character, but we can get into the heads of each of the characters. If you've ever read a book that the first one chapter is by somebody's point of view, and then the next chapter is a different character and it's telling their point of view, or it may even shift within a chapter. Okay? Now, obviously, I went through this very quickly because it is a review. There are some new terms in there that you may not have heard before, and we will cover those later in another unit. But I just wanted you to know, number one, where to find this chart and how to use this chart. So this, again, is for fiction. This is fiction stories, okay, and giving you the terms of what they're called. Okay. In your reader's journal, please open to the next page. So we know we've learned about elements of story. We've reviewed some of the ones that we learned from last year. And now we're talking and we're going to be looking at specifically how we can use the elements of story to help us to interpret the character. And so there are certain things that we pay attention to. All right, so when The title actually of this session is Using the Story Arc to Notice Important Details About Character. And again, that's what we're doing. We're noticing the details about characters. We're building interpretations on those characters, the type of person the character is, by paying attention to the details. So if we're going to say, okay, I'm going to follow the story arc, I'm going to use the story arc to help me to know what details are important. What do I pay attention to? You pay attention to what the character wants, what they desire. What do you think Mia, what do you think is something that Mia wants or desires? What does she want? Lorenzo? Okay. She does. She would like Mr. Yao to buy a glass or a camera. All right. What else does she want? I don't know if I would agree. Does she ever think or say anything? She misses her cousin, but does she ever say that she wants to go back to China? Now, we're not, to be fair, we're not all the way through the book, so maybe you can hold that idea loosely, but right now we don't have any facts to prove that. Yes?
She wants to keep her job.
She wants to work in the front desk. She wants to take like a responsible role in her family. Danny? Right, she's worried about her parents because her dad keeps getting woken up in the middle of the night to go see the customers. They're working super hard all day, past dark, to keep up with the motel, right? Something else, Kendall? I don't know. So let's stop this for a second and let's try to see if we can dive deeper into that idea. Okay? So, what does that dog represent to me? What does living in a house and having a dog represent to me? What does it symbolize? What does it represent? Marley?
That it's normal.
It's normal, right? Like you belong, right? A sense of belonging. You made it. You're in America. You have the things that people have in America: a house, a dog. All right. It's normal, right? It represents success. It represents fitting in. It represents belonging. Okay? So yes, she wants the dog, but if we kind of take it deeper, we know that she wants to belong. She wants to feel like she is like everybody else, right? Bryn, something else? She did. She did. Again, though, what does that represent? What does that represent? Danny? Like success, right? Being successful, right? That chocolate notebook represented being successful. Okay, Elizabeth?
She wants to tell Lupe what happened when the guy grabbed her by her shirt and yelled at her.
Okay. So let's take that a little deeper, all right? Because, guys, remember, we're not swimming on the surface. So what does that mean she wants to talk to Lupe about that?
She wanted to tell Lupe because she didn't feel safe. She felt like something bad was going to happen.
Well, I'm not sure. Can someone build on that? We're not introducing something new. Let's just talk about that. Why does she want to tell Lupe about what happened to her? Salima?
Because friends help people comfort other people.
Okay, so because when you have a friend, you're sharing the things that happen to you. Okay, so let's take it to the next one. What's getting in the way of her doing that? What is the obstacle to her desire to talk to Lupe? What is the obstacle? Natalie? All right. Can you say more about that? What doesn't she understand? Okay, she doesn't understand, although Lupe is probably Hispanic, right, by the name. So we don't really know, do we? Right? We don't really know. We do know some things, though. Emma? Well, if she asked Lupe not to share it with anybody, but why can't she talk to Lupe? Who remembers? Lorenzo? Say it again, I didn't hear you. No, I don't think that's the problem. Danny? She's lied to Lupe. She told Lupe she lives in a house. She told Lupe that she has a dog. She can't confide in Lupe because Lupe thinks she's living a different life. Okay? She says Lupe's not going to understand. Well, Lupe's not going to understand why she lied to her. Okay, and so then we need to think about also the ways that the character responds to the obstacle. The ways that the character responds to the obstacle. So I've already noticed kind of a pattern that keeps repeating. When Mia has a problem, what does she do? When she encounters an obstacle, what's the first thing she tends to do? Well, she is kind of impulsive, but I'm not sure that would be how she would respond to an obstacle. Okay, I'm not sure that's how. Marley?
She would try to fix it.
How? How did she know that bulletproof glass was $25 a square foot? How did she know that? Roman? She did not go to the store. Jirexi? She went to the library, right? And if you're really paying attention to the details, because guess what, guys? It's all in the details. And if you're not paying attention to those details, you are missing the story. More than once, she goes to the library to research things. That's what she does. That's how she reacts to the obstacles that are in her way. Now, there are lots of other obstacles in her way. Number one being her age. Remember how when she wanted to start working the front desk, every time a customer came in, they said, I want to see the manager? So what did she do? How did she respond to that obstacle? What did she do? Anna? She wrote a sign. Mia Yang. Right? Mia Yang. Manager. Right? She put her name and manager. Okay? You know what? The last name of the author is Yang. Okay, so she did make a sign that said manager, but the people still came in and said, I want to see the manager. Okay? What did she do when that happened? What did she do? Because she reacted in a certain way. Aliana?
She pointed at the sign and stared at them until they said, okay.
Right. She pointed at the sign and she stared at them. Remember, she said when she was in school in science, they said that if you stare at a mammal, they will do what you want, and that's what she did. And her name is Tang, T-A-N-G, Mia Tang. So I'm thinking that Kelly Yang is taking kind of a take on her own, because this is somewhat autobiographical about her own experience, but it's still fictional. It's still a fictional story. Okay, so as we continue to do our read aloud, and as you continue to read in your independent book and sketch note, you need to be paying close attention to what your character wants, the obstacles in the path of your character, and then how your character reacts when they encounter that obstacle. What do they do? Because that tells you a lot about the type of person that they are. Okay, we're going to move into workshop time. If you have a black checker on your desk, you're only doing I ready or achieve. I have not put the names of the small group yet, but I will in a second. The rest of you are at your desk reading your independent book, the one that you chose from the side over here, the one that you're sketch noting on. And after yesterday's lesson on jotting that we did with our video, with our animated short, after yesterday's lesson, I should see some great sketch noting with a lot of your own thinking in it. And Ferris, you can come and sit up here at the desk and do I ready? All right, let's